So I'm not sure how much you know about my story, but I was actually a practicing Satanist for about 10 years. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I left. I've got a relationship with Christ. Welcome back to another episode of Rise to Liberty. Today we have a new friend of the channel. It is Ben McClintock of the Tree of Liberty Society. How you doing today, Ben?
Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate being on with you, Jacob.
Yeah, of course. So we have a really interesting topic to cover today. A topic that's come up quite a bit more in the news over the last few years, I would say. Topic that we cover on this channel quite a bit, and that is Satanic Ritual Abuse, SRA, if you will. But specifically, we were going to discuss the Glenn Pace Memo, kind of start there and see where the conversation takes us. So before we dive into that, just want to throw this out there, trigger warning for anybody. This is a pretty serious subject, but those who are familiar with my channel are usually pretty familiar with that. So on that, if this is not a subject that you think you can handle, now's the time to turn away. Otherwise, go ahead, hit the like, share, subscribe, head on over to Ben's channel, which will be in the episode description, and make sure and give him a follow. And on that, Ben, want to tell us a little bit about you and your channel, what you have going on while people keep filing in.
Yeah. So I've been in the Liberty movement for the last, just like heavy hardcore for the last 26 years now. And I've been a coordinator and a regional field director for the John Birch Society for many years. And then in 2022, I started the Tree of Liberty Society, which with my book Invasion, right here that you can get on our website, it was banned from Amazon. It goes through and it shows how the international conspiracy is not just out in New York. It's not just out in Washington, D.C., but these international organizations have infiltrated our local communities. And it documents that process of how it's done and the organizations that are connected to things like the Council on Foreign Relations or the Bohemian Grove, Skull and Bones, and how they are connected to the local level, and then what we can do to stop it. And so at the Tree of Liberty Society, we have a twofold mission where we are building understanding and adherence to the principles that have built free nations throughout time, as well as exposing and developing and building an organized resistance to the satanic conspiracy that is seeking to overthrow the freedom of all lands, nations, and countries. And so that's the major push. And as an organization, we are nationwide. We actually have members in Japan and Canada, and
Oh, wow.
so all over the world as well. And we have live trainings every single week where people from all over come on, and we go dig deeper into a subject, and then talk about what are some things that we should be doing about it. And so
Right.
we're really organized. We're not just here. I don't want to be the most informed person in the concentration camp. And, it's one of those things where I want to help people understand these things so we can do about it.
Right. Yeah, that's honestly incredible. So I myself have also been pretty involved heavily with the Liberty movement in general. Not quite as long as you have been, but especially over the last, I would say, yeah, right. So I just turned 34 this year. So, but I did find Ron Paul when I was in high school, when his 2008 run. So there was a certain point I just had to get involved, and I mean that's why I started the show. The show kind of came out of lockdown censorship. Yeah, I knew the marketplace was flooded with people starting shows, and granted, a lot of those have kind of fallen off by the wayside now. Yep. But we're almost 6 years coming up this July. Yeah, 6 years deep and going stronger than ever. I just felt as though that I couldn't sit by and just like let this happen, just
Yep.
and just not do anything. The idea of my child looking at me and asking, "What did you do?" and me
Mhm.
saying nothing was just about the scariest thing I could possibly think of. And so I was just like, whether I was successful or not is a whole different
Yep.
discussion, but I'm not going to idly sit by.
As
So
they say, duty is ours, right? The results are up to God.
yeah, right, exactly. I think we have a pretty fair chance at winning, though.
Yeah,
I mean, at least the story always goes that good wins in the end. So
absolutely.
so on that, um, I guess where did you come across the Glenn Pace memo? Like when did that come across your radar?
Yeah. So I'm thinking it's been a while. I'm trying to think of the whole process of understanding these things. I think it was around 2009, 2008, 2009, sometime in that time frame. And so it came out in the 90s. I was when it early 90s. I was probably, let's see here, 13 years old when it came out. So I didn't grow up in the Intermountain West, and so I didn't hear about it until I was an adult. And as I came across it, it was horrific,
Right.
and but I didn't know how to process it or what do you do with this information. And so it's taken me several years to kind of like to start to see, understand the bigger picture, start to look
Right.
at the other aspects of it. You have the Glenn Pace memo, you have the Franklin cover up, you
Right.
have now we have the Epstein files, and you've got things that happened in Los Angeles, and you've got all these different things that are happening that all follow the same pattern. They all
Right.
are doing the same thing. Like, I don't know if you how much you've looked into the Franklin cover up, but
Quite a bit.
the ringleader of that, Larry King, or Lawrence King, not Larry King that talks to the CNN guy,
Yeah.
but Lawrence King. He was a CIA asset, and now we're finding out that uh, Epstein is a CIA asset, and so
Right.
we all of these connections. These things are not separate. These things are all intertwined and connected. It's all part of It's not like a local. Oh, look over here, they got this thing, and it's we haven't heard about it in 30 years, so it must not exist anymore. No, this is still going on, and there's a systematic cover up
Right.
going on.
Right. And I believe that's what, the satanic panic
Yeah,
was a way to be able to continue this behavior,
yep,
because it was going to make anyone that points out this behavior look crazy. It was
right,
a way to poison the well, basically.
yep,
And it worked phenomenally, for now several decades.
yep,
And now, post 9/11, especially post Epstein,
yeah.
it's not a conspiracy theory anymore. In fact, is it not only not a conspiracy theory, it's like a lot worse than what most people even discussed.
It's a conspiracy fact, and yes, it's
Right.
worse than you would think.
Right. Um, so for those who don't know, what is the Glenn Pace memo?
So during this time, late 80s, early 90s, there was a lot of things going on where people were accusing, or accusations were coming out where kids and adults were talking about being satanic ritually abused. And in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, all over the Intermountain West, all the way down to Mexico, members were going to their local leaders talking about being victims, being perpetrators, and these local lay, these are volunteer religious leaders, local on the local level. What do you do with this information? Are
Right.
they? The question came up: Are these individuals accountable for the things that they were engaged in because it was done under coercion or under brainwashing? And so they just didn't know how to handle the information that was coming to them, and so they sent inquiries up to Salt Lake City, the headquarters of the church, and a committee that has been around since basically the 1930s, 40s, called the Strengthening the Members Committee, was assigned to the task of investigating these claims. and a member of the presiding bishopric, so one of the top leading organizations of the church, was tasked with interviewing these individuals: Idaho, Utah, Arizona, California, Mexico, all over, and seeing what he could find out. And so that's in the report itself. It references 2 other reports that have never been leaked. So after this report was written, somebody that was close to the investigation leaked it to what is considered or it doesn't exist anymore, but what was considered an anti-Mormon organization called Lighthouse Ministries. And prior to this report coming out, they poo-pooed it, said there was nothing. It was just, Christians need to stop talking about this. It's nonsense.
Right.
And when this came out, they're like, oh, this, I don't know if it was something they thought they could use against the church. I don't know what their motives were, but they decided to release it to the public. And I don't see how it could be, because the report itself doesn't name top leaders. It just says that individuals that were in positions of authority on the local level. You have, if anybody's familiar with the structure of the church, you have bishops and stake presidents and patriarchs, and even members of what was then called the Mormon Tabernacle Choir were named as perpetrators and people involved in this satanic network all over the Western United States.
Right. So for anyone who doesn't know, who's never read the actual memo, it's actually pretty tame considering.
And it's horrific.
Right. Right. Exactly. It's all things considering,
compared to the actual things that people talk about in like the police reports.
Right. So I do highly recommend it. You can pretty much find it anywhere. So
it's on our website.
There you go.
The PDF, and then also I did a video on our YouTube channel where I read it, so you can listen to it while it's scrolling on the screen. So it's there in whatever format that you like to consume things.
Right. Right. And so from what you understand, how was this like perceived when it was finally released
to the public?
Yeah, correct.
So from what I've been able to see, and again, I wasn't really old enough to be paying attention, but going back and looking at things, at first it was, it was a pretty big scandal. I guess it was covered in the news. The state government actually created a task force to look into it. Glenn Pace himself says that he was kind of skeptical at first, but then as he went through and listened to all of the victims and how, individuals that have never met, never knew each other, didn't know people that weren't connected, were all telling the same exact story. And so how do members in Mexico tell the same story as members in Idaho that have never met each other, and it's not like UFO stuff where it's been around for 50 years. They didn't have the internet where they were looking up YouTube videos to be indoctrinated, whatever. And so he felt that it was, completely, the stories were completely reliable and believable, and that it matched his understanding of the scriptures that he believes.
Right. So who is Glenn Pace?
So again, he was a member of what's called the presiding bishopric, which is a leading authority in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So he wasn't just some random guy that they pulled in. He was that was very trusted within the organization, and is somebody that they felt was level-headed, and was somebody that was going to give them a rational and a level-headed response, or report on what had happened.
So you were actually able to speak to Glenn Pace before he passed.
Yeah.
How did that whole thing come about?
Sure. So because this is so damning and so controversial, there were a lot of people within that church that didn't believe it. They felt that especially since it was released through a so-called anti-Mormon publication, that and I'm trying to use neutral language here, just that I wanted to be able to confirm it for myself. I wanted to be able to tell people no, I talked to the guy. It's fake, or yeah, he told me it wasn't real, or yeah, it's real. He told me so. And
Right.
so I had actually talked to another guy that had actually found his found out where he lived and had talked to him. And so he gave me his address because it wasn't like listed in the white pages or anything like that. So it was very difficult to find. And so I didn't have his phone number, so there was no way to like set up an appointment. But so I just knocked on his door one day and talked to him and asked him about it, and he confirmed. He said, yes, it's real. And he talked about how people have been calling his office for years after it came out,
I
trying to
bet.
confirm. And so his secretary, the first time that somebody called him about it, his secretary was shocked, like had never heard of it herself, and thought it was, she was really disturbed by it. And so she went to, Glenn Pace, and asked him, and he confirmed it. And so from then on, this office was able to confirm it to anybody that called. And then he told me that not only is it real, but it's actually tamer than what he kind of toned it down from what he really experienced. It was much worse than the things that he was able to record or felt comfortable recording, and that it's much more pervasive than he was able to include in the report, and that essentially the whole Utah power structure, the Utah government, would fall if the information that he knew were to be made public.
Interesting. So no wonder why he would not want to be very, very easily found.
And he didn't want to talk about it. He was really keeping things really quick. And he's like, I don't want to talk
Right.
about it. My family, I don't want them in danger, basically.
Right.
And he was just like, confirm, it's worse than you think. I'm done talking.
Right. Interesting. And so it was pretty much just that, and he
Yeah.
was done.
And he was done. And then 2 weeks later, he did not seem in poor health at all. He was walking around. He was in his bathrobe, but he was walking around and seemed very alert and not frail at all. But within 2 weeks after our visit, he died. I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but I was very grateful that we were able to get a hold of him before he passed.
And what year was this? Just for frame of reference.
Yeah, this is 2017, 18, 19, 2019.
Interesting. So you've talked to the man, he confirmed it, and then where do you kind of go with from that? Because I mean, for anyone who like especially looking into this subject
Sorry,
specifically,
2017. I was just correcting myself.
17. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyone looking into this subject, I mean, that's a lot to handle, to realize that this is real.
Yeah.
That this, I mean, there's so many levels to it, but just like realizing that these things like actually happen, that's a lot to take in. And so where do you kind of go with this after the information that he confirmed that this is real?
So it's an important thing to be able to understand what you're dealing with, because too often, and as I cover this in my book, you have all these different tentacles of this single Hydra beast. It's one conspiracy. It's not a bunch of conspiracies that we face. And so
Right.
when you look at the secret societies that we talked about, Skull and Bones, Bohemian Club, Council on Foreign Relations, those types of things, understanding, right, because the things that they do at the Bohemian Grove, and the connections to human sacrifices, and the things linked to worshiping these Moloch and these types of things, and the people that are connected in that, understanding in greater detail what it is that we're dealing with, that there are individuals in power that claim to be one thing, but there's something else, right?
Right.
People feel that when George W. Bush ran for president, he was talking about a non-interventionist foreign policy, and that he didn't believe in nation building, right? But then he gets into office, and all of a sudden, 9/11. We're nothing we can do about it. Kind of like what happened with World War II, and with Vietnam, and with Korea, and all these different things. It's always we have a population that is against these interventionist policies, and then
Right.
a false flag happens to get us to get involved. It's just crazy. I don't know
Right.
how it happens. And so understand these guys are not just suckers. They're not just deceived, that we're the suckers. We're the ones that are deceived by them. And so understanding this conspiracy helps us to understand who we're dealing with. And so we're not trusting them to save us with legislation. Like in Utah, for example, Utah is supposed to be very constitutional, very family oriented. But when a bill was introduced to criminalize ritual abuse, it died. It didn't even make it to the floor
Right.
vote.
Twice, actually.
Yeah, twice. Yeah. And so we're not dealing with people that are like, that are confused, right? They're having legislation that is should be the easiest thing on the planet to pass.
Yeah.
And they're refusing to pass it.
Well, and the fact that any bill such as that was controversial at all is insane to me.
Oh, totally.
I mean, like when the Utah County Sheriff came out and announced that they were looking into just ritual abuse, didn't mention anything about Satanism, just ritual abuse, which just means that it's happening in a particular pattern repeatedly.
Right.
I mean, that's all that means. And all of a sudden it was like the satanic panic had sparked again in Utah.
Right.
So it was like one of the most controversial things for weeks. I watched over social media because I actually live in Utah, and it was like a wildfire. It just spread like crazy, and all of a sudden they say ritual abuse, and it's all downhill from there.
Yep. And I covered this in the video, and like of all these hundreds afterwards, because the sheriff's department asked for people to come in and tell them if they've been abused as well. And they get hundreds, if not thousands of people coming to them and telling them their stories. And only 2 people get charged. And then, they both eventually get the charges dismissed with prejudice, where they admitted, right? You have Hamblin admitting aspects of this, and so
admitted several times on tape.
Yep. And then and nothing happens to them. So you have what happens is you have prosecutors that are barred from the judiciary from prosecuting the case, or they promote them to be judges, so then they can't prosecute the case. And then you have the state legislature, where they are refusing to pass legislation criminalizing this behavior. And then you have the executive branch that is protecting them. And so all 3 levels of government that are ensuring that these individuals are not being prosecuted. At the last hearing for David Hamblin, for example, the judge, when he was deciding to dismiss the case, he was not asking the victim's attorney, or the alleged victim's attorney. He was only asking David Hamlin's attorney of how to proceed. What do I do next? How do I handle this? And when I wanted to...
That's insane.
Yeah. As a part of the First Amendment, protected in both the federal and state constitutions, I was airing live that hearing, and the judge threatened to throw me in prison if I continued to live stream that, even though they were live streaming it. I was just giving an opportunity for people to watch it, make it easier for them. They could go to their website, or they could go to mine. They're going to throw me in jail for showing the public, because now you can't access
a public hearing.
A public hearing, going to throw me in jail.
Right.
And so it's just craziness.
Right. And I mean, the Hamblin case is interesting because it's so not unique. This is not uncommon.
Right.
And it's not specific to Utah either. I think the only difference with the Hamblin case, and let me know if you agree, is that so much of the corruption and the turning wheels of the corruption is exposed.
Yeah.
I think that's like the biggest difference, because most of the time you just don't see how corrupt the system is when these sorts of things happen. But I think that's the only difference is with the Hamblin cases, it's just so blatant. And I think it's because they don't care, because there's nothing that can really be done about it.
Well, in the traditional sense, right?
Right.
It comes to a point where you have to kind of go founding fathers on people, when if you catch my meaning, because
Right.
the same thing happened with the Franklin cover-up. It's the insane similarities, not in just the activities that were going on, but in the media protection and the police
Right.
protection, and the federal government coming in and making sure that nothing goes further. Um, it was, even though we have just tons and tons of cases where you have, even in California, where there was a case where um, a what's it called, a preschool was, you had all of the kids in this affluent area
The
coming
Presidio.
in Presidio, yeah, and saying the same thing.
Yep.
This isn't like, and of course the government, the media government complex is saying this isn't real, but you have the Ted Gunderson, who is a 28-year FBI veteran, saying that there were volumes of evidence. And he says, quote, in the McMartin case, for example, before any charges were filed against anyone, 460 complaints were filed with the Manhattan Beach Police. Are we to believe that 460 families fed their children the same story of ritualistic sexual abuse, animal sacrifice, etc.?
Right.
So it's, and this isn't like where they get into, they want to say, well, a lot of this is just a recovered memory syndrome.
Yeah.
Well, we have, again, you have Hamlin admitting to the molestation on tape. You have the false memory syndrome organization was actually founded by a pedophile, and
Right.
so of
And
course,
ran by MK Ultra doctors and
yep,
CIA agents. Yeah, that
exactly,
we've covered this extensively on my channel.
awesome.
It's a glowing organization.
But yeah, and so but here in these cases, and also as well as in the Franklin cover up, not all of the cases are from recovered memories.
Right.
You have recovered memories, and you have people coming forward, just straightforward, telling the same story, which gives credence to the recovered memories, because people that aren't telling it that way, are, that have not, there's, you're telling me that there's a conspiracy of psychologists and children, and not a conspiracy of government bad actors. Like, that is just flies in the face of history and
Right.
the facts. It's crazy.
Right. Well, and I think this is what ultimately gives the legitimacy to these stories is, well, for one, children don't make this up. They just don't. They
No
don't
child.
have.
I've got 9 kids, and if one of my kids came up with this story that they just made up in their head, I would, that would never happen. That's insane. They would never even
Right.
come.
Right. Like children have beautiful imaginations,
Right.
but not in this capacity. There's, I
And you
mean,
can't imagine something you've never seen, especially if you're a kid,
right,
right?
right, exactly. Well, then how would you even know how to explain that? Explain that.
Right.
And these children, these massive numbers of children, thousands of kids all across the country,
Yep.
are explaining virtually the same thing.
Yep.
Now, specifically with the McMartin case, I mean, there's video evidence of finding those tunnels,
Right.
and I've shown the video evidence to people, and they still deny it.
Yep.
It's like this cognitive dissonance that just won't flip in their mind that like
Well, I
they
think
can
it's an
see the tunnels.
immorality within the person, because if they have to accept that, or they're in on it, but if they're not in
Right,
on it, I think it's if they're immoral, because they recognize that if it's true, they have to do something about it.
right, right, and that's what I was just going to ask is that your opinion of that?
Yeah.
People just don't want to accept this because then, yeah, like this is a whole problem. Like I said, I mean, that is a lot to accept, that people could be this cartoonishly evil.
Right.
So um I
And that
mean,
there's a cover up for it. I mean, you can remember before the
right.
Epstein files actually got released, there were articles saying that all of the conspiracy theories about Jeffrey Epstein were based on anti-Semitism. And so they were trying
Yeah.
to
Right.
dismiss that it was all a conspiracy theory. And now we know it's worse than everybody said it was before the files came out. And we only have 2% of the files.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they virtually gave us nothing, and it's still like some of the most horrific things I've ever read.
Yeah. You saw
So,
about the Epstein paying for some girl's college tuition if she gave him a pint of Mormon blood every week.
yeah, which is Mormon blood, specifically that phrase,
Yeah.
which is horrific. And exactly why would he even put it like that? Which
Right.
is so disturbing. It's like, I want a pint of Mormon blood.
Right. Specifically.
Right. And oh, it's so disturbing. So here in the state of Utah, it seemed as though there was actually a report. I tried to find it um before the stream, and in fact I might be able to still find it, but it was a it was a poll that Deseret Church, or the Deseret newspaper,
Yeah.
gave in the early 90s, and they polled the population of Utah asking, is satanic ritual abuse real?
Mhm.
Well, it turns out that out of everyone they polled, 90% said yes.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's granted, it's a poll, so,
Sure.
but still, I mean, that's one data point that should be taken into consideration when we're talking about these subjects. And 90% is outrageous. That
Yeah.
90% of anyone asked a question about this says yes, it's real, especially in a
Yeah,
state where it was happening.
I don't think you could find a poll that said 90% of the people believe the sun rises in the east.
Right, right. So where do you think this is now? Because now we've had all of these things disclosed, we've had them out in the open. I mean, what do we do about this?
Right. Well, have you ever seen the movie Clear and Present Danger?
Yes.
So remember what the president said, right? The course of action I'd suggest is a course of action I can't suggest.
Right.
So it's where are we now? I think that they
Right.
were able to completely get away with in the McMillan case, and then they were able to get away with what happened in the Intermountain West with the Glenn Pace memo. They've been able to get away
Right.
with um, the Franklin in Nebraska case. They've been able to get away with the Epstein case. So frankly, what I believe is, and this is not just because, oh, we just didn't have enough evidence. This is an
Right.
active cover up on every single one of these cases, active cover up amongst every level of government and media to cover
Right.
it up and make sure that nobody is held accountable. Not only is nobody held accountable, but the people that are testifying are the ones, the only people like in the Franklin cover up that went to jail were the victims. And because
Right.
they accused them of perjury and put them in prison for sentenced them to prison for 15 years.
Right.
And so if the victims are the only ones going to prison, and all of the perpetrators that are being accused are the alleged perpetrators are getting off on this, then what it tells us is that they believe that they can get away with anything, and that it is worse than it's ever been, that it is expanded, and that they are confident that the people will do nothing about it, because
Right.
we have the Epstein files now that have been released, right? We have the evidence. The FBI in the 90s released, or the federal government released, a report in the 90s talking about people confessing to these things. Glenn
Right.
Pace talked about people confessing. So this isn't even recovered memories of I'm a victim. These are people coming forward saying, I did it.
Right.
And they're not going to jail. And so they believe, and so they know that.
Oops. Sorry. There we go. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
You're good. So people are saying that it's real. I mean, we have the evidence that it's real.
Right.
90% say that they believe that it's real, but we're all arguing about Iran and gas prices.
Yeah, right. Right.
Like,
Well, and so
crazy.
there's a former police officer here in the state of Utah who was on one of these task force for the investigation of SRA
Yeah.
here in the state of Utah, because Utah actually had 3 of them.
Mhm.
There was 2 separate ones in 91, and I believe a third one in 93. and he now runs a rather popular true crime YouTube channel. I'm not, going to plug his name, but it's not hard to find out. But he was on the investigatory panel for, I believe, 2 out of the 3 of these, and he's come out and said several times that he personally investigated a lot of this stuff and never found any evidence. And I find that to be absurd, personally.
Well, we know that it's not. Well, yeah, we know that it's not true. That is
Right.
that is a provably false statement. And
Right.
well, okay, I should say the government, if as abroad, what he has seen, I can imagine this situation where he has this piece of evidence in front of him and he's looking around. I don't see anything. If that might be the
Right.
case of what he's trying to get at, but there is zero chance that that is a legitimate claim.
Right. I mean, in my opinion, he either did not investigate or he's lying. So he either didn't do his job,
Right.
and so he's able to claim that he never investigated, or that he could never find anything, because it's pretty easy to not find anything if you don't look.
Exactly.
But if he did look and actually do his job as though he claims, and
Yeah.
still was unable to find anything, I personally view that, my personal opinion is that that's part of active cover up, because I don't know how you could look at any, like, I'm not an investigative, detective,
Right.
and I've been able to find evidence. So, you know, I'm like a nobody when it comes to this investigatory
Well,
world.
that
And
same language is exactly what they used in Franklin. You have,
right,
if you watch Conspiracy of Silence about the Franklin cover-up specifically,
right,
you have the sheriff's department or the police department saying, "We never saw any evidence," and then you have the lady from the Child Protective Services coming in and saying, "We gave them a stack of evidence yay high."
right,
And so it's the same again. It's the same exact pattern in all of these cases. These are not
right,
separate. These are all the same exact thing being investigated separately.
right. And I think that is kind of something important to point out, that these are all different tentacles. They're even though some of these might not be directly related, they are all related somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
Um, you trace them up all the way, you know, back up the tentacle, and you'll find a connection eventually.
Well, and that's the thing is that Pace found that these were going to government officials, and that
Right.
you see that in Franklin government officials, you see that in Epstein government officials, and so and you don't get the cover up without government officials being
Correct.
involved. And so what we can garner from this is that we are literally ruled over by satanic pedophiles.
Right. I mean, that's the conclusion I've come to. And I think that's a reasonable conclusion with
Sounds
with
extreme, but that's just what the evidence shows.
right. I'm open to the opposite. I did believe the opposite at one point, um, but I just find it highly unlikely that that is the actual case, that we're not ran
Right.
by satanic pedophiles, or at the very least that they overwhelmingly outnumber anyone else in office. So even if
Well,
it's not
right.
literally everybody, it's enough of them.
We are ruled, meaning that the rules that come forward are put forth by these individuals. Are there
Right,
maybe a couple of guys on some city council somewhere that aren't? Sure, that's fine.
right, exactly. Um, Now with this, there's so I'm trying to like rehash this question so it's not quite so broad, but
Yeah.
like what is it that the average person should do, like in the immediate? Because obviously there's a lot of long-term stuff that we probably can't suggest on
Right.
live camera.
Right.
But like in the immediate moment, I mean,
So in the immediate
exactly.
moment, you recognize what we're being ruled over by. What does a moral person do when a person that murders, molests, satanically ritually abuses a child, tells them, give me money,
Right.
is to laugh in their face and tell them to go pound sand. So the
Right.
fact that we are obeying these people's rules, the fact that we are telling them that we're letting them teach our children is
Right.
outrageously insane. So immediately, our job, I believe, as a parent, is to remove your child from being instructed by these individuals, which is government schools. Secondly, is the founding fathers' beginning solution of nullification, which is
Right.
you don't obey evil. The laws that they're making are unconstitutional and evil, and the people making those laws are evil and
Right.
illegitimate, because I don't believe that they even gotten their positions legitimately. And so, to me, is separating yourself and resisting, saying, I am going to disobey. I recognize that there are consequences. I'm not one of these people that say that if you just mail in your birth certificate and your driver's license, that the government's going to leave you alone. No, they're evil. Of course, they don't care about that stuff. They're going to come after you when you resist them. But
Right.
as a moral person, we have to say, well, I have to resist them anyways. And
Right.
so really disobedience is number one, removal from their system is number two, and resistance is number three.
Right. And there are ways to do this, by the way.
Yeah.
Because my personal opinion, any sort of violent uprising would be probably the stupidest thing we could do, only
100%.
because they know how to respond to that. Like, evil people understand how to respond to violence. Like,
And
they
as the population were ignorant, we replaced them with just different Satanists, so it wouldn't even matter.
Right. Exactly. And so this is going to be a decentralized individual rebellion, and that's the only way that it's going to be able to happen. And this is why I preach on my show that the front lines of this battle is in the home. This starts with the cleaners in your house, the poisoned food, the poisoned air, the poisoned water. It starts with all of this, because it's not just them attacking the children. It's them attacking all of us with everything, because they're evil.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well, this is another aspect of it. But I was just doing a deep dive on what's going on with the so-called drought and how the Salt Lake is going down levels.
right.
So during the floods of the 80s, they started draining Utah Lake and forming a second lake. So the draining of the lake has been going on for 30, 40 years now, first of all. Number two, since the 1950s, the state of Utah has been spending roughly $250,000 to $300,000 every single year on so-called cloud seeding, right?
Right.
And but just a few years ago, they upped that. They from 300,000, right, at the peak.
Right.
1 year jumped to 15 million, with a $3 million a year increase every year. So 3 million just going forward. Okay. So what does cloud seeding actually do? Well, we know up until this point that since they started till this point where they jumped up the funding, that snowfall and rainfall has declined up to 30% since they started doing that. So A,
right.
it doesn't work. B, we know that over cloud seeding actually has the reverse result. In the 2008 Olympics in China did what they called overseeding, knowing that it would prevent rainfall from the opening ceremonies. And
interesting.
So knowing that that's the result of increasing the seeding is going to result, they know that it's going to result in it. Right. They are purposefully making sure that we have dramatically less rain and snowfall, ensuring that the lake continues to decrease its levels. So it's not like they're just killing children and, just killing children. If that's like,
yeah,
but like,
right.
You talked about the poisons that they're putting in our foods and our chemicals for cleaning. They're literally trying to take away our water. They are literally trying to kill us.
Right. Right. And, block out the sun on top of that.
Yeah. And control it, because if there's no water, then they have to step in and make sure that nobody waters their lawn. They are causing the problem so they can come in and create the solution for the problem that they caused.
Right. Which is classic government, break your legs and then sell you a pair of crutches.
Exactly.
And then tax you on those crutches.
Exactly.
And so it's always curious to me because to me, I mean, this has always been obvious. Is like it's especially once you see anything, any of these cracks in these official stories,
Yeah.
once you see them, that's it. Like to my mind, I've never seen anything else.
Right.
And I was called crazy a long time for this the chemtrail discussion and
Yeah.
everything. It's like even though you can look up and see that they're spraying us with something, people will still deny it and call you crazy. I mean, I don't care, but now, I mean, not too long ago, documents have come out proving that LBJ was doing this back in the 60s.
Yeah.
And it's like there's so many Operation Popeye, Operation Sea Spray. There's so many of these well-known, documented, and public um, events that took place that explain exactly what they're doing.
Right.
And still, for some reason, the brainwashing just works so well that we're just told to ignore our eyes.
Yep.
And what is it that you believe is the response to this? Do you believe that we are to a point that everyone that's going to be awake is awake, or is it still worth trying to like shake people awake to exactly what's happening?
Right. So I think it's always worthwhile to wake up more people. I think there are always more people waking up. From my experience in the last 26 years, is that your average person almost has like a 2-year life cycle, basically, where they wake up, they try to get involved in, trying to vote harder and try to get the right guy elected to fix their problem,
Right.
recognize it doesn't work. And so they go back to sleep thinking, well, why waste my time and money realizing that doesn't work? Well, how
Right.
about instead of giving up, I believe our job is to organize. And that's what we're doing at the Tree of Liberty Society, so that we can organize our efforts to help more people understand and then
Right.
implement the things that have brought about free people. And that's the solution. We as individuals, it's up to us, but all of us out here doing different things, as a shotgun, doesn't really have as much of an effect. And so that's why we have the Tree of Liberty Society, so that we can join together and concentrate on the same program all at once. And so that way we can have a much bigger impact as we grow and have more people working on it.
Right. Well, and I mean, if this is going to be, decentralized, it can only be so decentralized
Right.
because I mean, there has to be at the very least a centralization of goal,
Right.
of understanding. Everyone's got to understand that they've got to do certain things on the individual level.
Right.
Otherwise, I mean, this is not going to get done. I mean, it doesn't matter that my family and I have gone out of our way to start making our own laundry detergent so that we're ingesting less chemicals,
Yep.
unless I can start teaching other people how to do that and they start doing it, and then it spreads like wildfire, and then we're actually doing something.
There has never been in the history of ever an effective and decentralized military.
Right.
Right. If we're in a battle for freedom and against evil, there has to be some sort of centralization.
Right.
But at the same time, like you said, we all have an individual responsibility to apply these things. And so
Right.
I think that it's not either or, it's both.
Right. Right. I think that's a great answer. Um, and that's kind of the conclusion that I came to because you know when I started this channel, I was heavily involved in third party politics.
Mm-hmm.
And I obviously didn't have a whole lot of faith, but I saw, maybe there's a possibility. Now I'm on the whole, well, there is no possibility in that route, and we have to go a completely opposite direction. Because even if you get in, I mean, I came to the conclusion is how can a moral person ethically move in an immoral and unethical system?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the entire system that it's
Right.
built by criminals for criminals. And so like the structure, maybe it started great, but it's not what it was.
I mean, we just have to think about it logically. Going back to the satanic ritual abuse, if this
Right.
is real and we have all these people in every level of government protecting these individuals and this network, do you think that this network is going to allow for them to be replaced so that somebody else can come in and throw them?
Right.
It's
Right.
not going to happen that way. You are not going to vote your way out of this. You're not going to vote harder. That is not how victory, that is not how liberty has ever been won, ever.
Right. Right. And I think that's scary to a lot of people.
Yeah,
That, and I do think a lot of people are lazy.
for sure.
Like there's just lazy people, and I knew that um trying to get anyone organized politically is a nightmare. you
Herding
know?
cats, as they say.
Yeah, right. And I mean, I was involved with the Libertarian Party because that was the closest thing, to anarcho-capitalism that I could find.
Mhm.
And they always made that joke about libertarians in general, but it's like, no, 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 this is anybody.
Right.
It
Yes.
doesn't matter what party you're organizing for, it is herding cats.
Mhm.
Good luck, because most people don't want to come out. Most people want a quick fix. And even with this satanic ritual abuse, or like any of this other objectively evil behavior,
Yeah.
people want to just be able to say, that's the bad guy, this is what we do, and that's the end of it. And it
Right.
just doesn't work that way.
Send me money. I'll take them to court. I mean, it's crazy.
Right. Right. Um so with all of this, where are you at? Like, once again, this is a lot for people to kind of consume. And I mean, the Epstein thing,
Yeah.
this just took it to a whole new level,
Yeah.
right? Like this wasn't your granddad's satanic panic,
Right.
like. So where are you, just as an individual, where are you, like, with this mentally? How are you, um I guess, able to take this in?
I've had the advantage of being at this for 20 something years, so that's helpful, right?
Right.
And it's helpful in some ways and helpful and not helpful in others, where I just it's just par for the course, basically, and that kind of being jaded in that way is not a great thing
Right.
either, right? And so it's come really just more of what how do I up my game to oppose this? And I don't know if you saw my recent video where I showed how me exposing these things and the names of these individuals led to an attempted murder on my life from the sheriff's department. And that's just that is shows me that if there was nothing there, they would just laugh and make fun of. You don't try
Right.
and kill someone that is not doing anything.
Right.
And so it tells me that I just need to work harder and smarter at the same time, and find and get more people involved in this process. Because if it's not just me talking about this, then if you shut me up, then there's somebody else that has the same understanding of both the problem and the solution. They're out there saying the same thing. And so what we need to do is we have to multiply ourselves. And so really that's what we're working at, is multiplying ourselves, so that way they can't shut us up.
Now, what do you say to the people that just kind of like reject this outright still? I mean, because I do think that there's this whole aspect of like the brainwashing, the mind control and everything, but then on top of that, there's just some people. Okay, let's forget the fact that human sacrifice goes back as
Mhm.
early as written history, but for some reason people still just don't believe that it happens now. Like, we are a society that's past that. I mean, how do you handle these people?
Yeah. So it reminds me of this parable of a lion and a donkey and a tiger. And the lion and the donkey and the tiger, they're arguing about the color of the grass. and the you have the donkey coming up and saying, "Lion, isn't the grass green?" And the lion's like, "Nope, it's purple." And then so the tiger, takes off and just smug as he could be, and the donkey goes back to the tiger and says, "Why did you say it was purple when it's wherever it's green?" And he's like, "Because you don't argue with idiots. Why are you arguing with someone that is obviously either stupid or lying or delusional?" And
Right.
so if an individual is not willing to put in the effort, if they dismiss it without investigation, if they've investigated it and they still deny it, why am I going to argue with them? I'm moving on. I don't need to argue with someone about where the sun rises, what color the grass is. I
Right.
know where it rises. I know what color the grass is. I'm going to move on very quickly instead of spinning my wheels, wasting my time with an individual that is not intellectually honest. I don't care about the person that might sound harsh, meaning I care about them as an individual, of course, but I don't care about arguing with someone
Right.
um, that is going to be intellectually dishonest. I'm not.
Right.
Why waste my time? My time is way too valuable than to waste my time with that one guy. That even if you showed him, if you brought him physically to the situation happening right in front of his face, that he would still deny it or say it wasn't as bad as you said it was.
Right.
I'm not going to waste my time. And so, really, the point is that we bring people to the water and we let them drink and make their own decisions.
Yeah.
And those people that after they've drunken want to do something about it, come on, let's get to work. Those that
Right.
have drunk, that refuse to drink or have drunken and saying that that we're crazy, have a good day.
Right. Um, have you noticed, and I assume you've probably had similar experience, but in my experience, most of like the immediate pushback I get is directly from religious people,
Hmm.
which is especially Christians, which is it's like this is your belief system.
Right.
Like you believe in this or you say you do.
There you do.
Right. And so you believe in the God side, but you don't believe in the evil here on earth.
Right.
That that is mind blowing to me. Is do you have a similar experience with that?
To an extent, I mean, I think I've seen actually. I don't know. Maybe you're right. I guess I come across more religious people than I think it's the numbers game, right?
Right.
I think it's just the population at large. I don't know if it's because it's so big, right? You have what's his name, J. Edgar Hoover, talking about the conspiracy that we face is so big that the average person cannot comprehend the conspiracy,
Right.
and so I think it is a lack of morality in the sense that your average person, Christian or not, doesn't want to be faced with the idea that they have to waste and wear out their lives to make sure that this no longer exists.
Right.
They like the fact that they can come home from work, watch TV, and go to bed.
Right. I
And
mean, it's
so anything
comfortable
that
life.
challenges that is going to be something that they fight.
Right.
If that's the kind of mindset that they're at, and that's the I don't they you know it's poop or get off the pot. Let's just I'm
Right.
not going to care about you basically and about your opinion if that's where you're going to be. You're an immoral person, and so I'm going to
Right.
move on and find more people that are moral and willing to stand up and help victims and help those that um, are, are victims of this.
Right. Then it brings to mind a saying that I hold very close to me, and I'm not quite sure where I heard it or where it came from, but it's that your children will suffer the tyranny of your obedience,
Right.
and it's like, man, I don't want my children suffering uh, the tyranny of satanic pedophiles,
Right.
and I think if you really pressed most people, they wouldn't either. But it is hard to break that comfort. You know, we haven't really we as Americans haven't really had to suffer for a long time. You know, we haven't had the Great Depression. I mean, we've had suffering, of course, but not on
Not to,
any sort of
right.
extendable level.
Right.
We've been very comfortable for a long time,
We're
and
not
I
losing our family floating across the sea to a better life.
right. exactly. We're not crossing the country that's undeveloped. We're not going without food, without jobs, and and I think it's coming. You know, I think it's definitely coming, and we've got a lot of struggle ahead of us, and
The
we're
other
just not familiar with it anymore.
the other part of it is we're brainwashed by this conspiracy media that
Right.
tells us that the solution is voting harder, taking them to court, or writing a sternly written letter to a Satanist.
Right.
Those are the three things people tell you are the solution to our problem. And so, anybody that tells you that no, there's actual risk and actual work involved in fighting evil,
Right.
uh, they want to go back to the easy. Oh, I'm just going to send that guy a check and I hope he wins the election. Oh, I'll sign this little petition. I'll show up to the park to hold my sign, um, or I'll donate to this organization that's going to do a lawsuit. But if I have to put myself at risk, no, that's I'm not going to.
Right.
That's too far.
Yeah, I've got after school activities. You know, I've got to get the kids to oboe lessons
I'd love
and
to
dance
stop the
class.
satanic pedophiles, but soccer
Yeah.
practice is at 6.
Right, right, exactly. You know, and I've got to have dinner on the table. You know, it's like I don't know. It's a little disheartening sometimes. I've kind of personally I've taken a lot of that energy that I've seen kind of bounce back, energy like that, and it does make me want to work harder.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm 6 years deep into this show.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep chugging forward, and it kind of seems like you're on the same mindset. So um I do kind of want to turn the conversation back just a little bit before we get out of here.
Yeah.
Um, so what is it that we learned from the Glenn Pace memo? Like what does it say?
So it says several things. It says that that there's a network of individuals in positions of power and authority in government and in religion. And so, and I don't think this is a exclusive to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as we can see
Right.
with those other cases, right? This is just, whatever the predominant religion or influence is in an area is the place that they will go to try and get these things done through,
Right.
because it's where it's trusted, right? And so, um, it tells us that we have a network of powerful, influential people put into positions, strategic positions, to either protect or engage in this ritual abuse. And what they do is they fracture people's minds. They torture them, and so that way, the torture fractures them, and so that the fractured personality is the one that is receiving the abuse, and then when they are finished with it, they go back to their normal personality, and so that way they either don't know about it, or
Right.
there is some kind of compartmentalization. The other thing that they do is that they are working to perpetuate the network. For one example, and this same method was delineated in the Epstein files as well, but we see in the Glenn Pace memo that what they'll do is they'll torture a little child to such a point where they will tell them to cry out to Jesus to save them, and then they won't, and then the Savior doesn't come, and so they say, now cry out to Satan to save you, and a figure coming in representing Satan comes in and delivers them from that torture at that moment. And so they teach these individuals to trust in the Lucifer, to trust in Satan to save them and to deliver them and to provide them with the things that they want and the things that they need. And so that helps to perpetuate this. They say that they teach the kids that they've gone too far, they can't be saved, and that Jesus doesn't save them anyways, but Satan takes care of them when they need it. And so that perpetuates the system as well. It damages these children, and so it makes it difficult to come out, makes it difficult for them to, even if they tried to come out, to become a normal part of society. And there's certain parts of it that are, even as disturbing as that is, the specific acts that they do to these kids is just, it's horrific.
Right.
As I've gone through, sometimes I just say I do have to take a break. Like I don't want to know every. I know how evil it is. Let's go
Right.
stop these guys. I don't need to know every single aspect of it. But but it is as evil. The thing which tells you, right, the evil that you've come up with in your mind to see what's been done doesn't even approach the evil that is going on as you
Right.
go through files, which again tells me that little kids didn't make this up, because I couldn't make this up. The things that
Right.
I've read about from these victims, I would have never thought of in a
Right.
million years. It's
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah,
And
there
so,
was actually quite a few things out of the Epstein files that I read, and I was like, "Oh my god. Like who would think of this?"
right,
You know?
right.
And I've been at this, let's see. So, I mean, I started researching MK Ultra about 10 years ago.
Hmm.
So, I'm about 10 years, 11 years deep, and even with everything I've read, there were still things that I was like, "Oh my god, who would think of doing this?"
Right, right,
Unless you're that depraved.
right. Yes. And so we need to understand how depraved they are. I guess maybe going back to your question, is that's what we learn, is that these people are more evil and vile than you can imagine, and they are raising a new generation to not only just to hurt them, but to raise them up to be a part of this, and that they are a part of every aspect of government to make sure that they are protected. Now, when I say
Right.
every aspect of government, every level of government, again, I'm not talking about every single individual. That's an oversimplification, but
Right.
it is undeniable fact, if you look at the evidence, that every level of government is involved in this.
Right. And why wouldn't it be?
Right.
You know, this is, if objectively speaking, if a evil entity and an evil force out there is attempting to take over the world, that's exactly what it would be doing.
Right. Right. You don't join the Bloods and the Crips. You use the Bloods and the Crips, right? That's not that you're
Right.
not going to get a whole lot of influence being a part of a low level street gang and not getting any protection from the government. You're going to join the government. You're going to become the government.
Right. And I mean, that's just one aspect of many.
Right.
Now, so I'm not sure how much you know about my story, but I was actually a practicing Satanist for about 10 years. So about 4 5 years ago, I left. I've got a relationship with Christ. I typically keep that off of my channel just because it's my journey, but
Sure.
it was really interesting. There were many different gatherings that I had gone to, that there were people from all walks of life. It wasn't just teenagers or adults that were inconsequential. There were
Right.
there were people that would attend these meetings in high up places.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to think that, like, some people would lie about who they are, like truly who they are,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't quite understand why some people don't believe that some people have hidden lives.
Well, it
you
just came
know?
out yesterday, right, with the former head of what was that, of the Border Patrol. Right? I can't remember what her position was, but her husband just came out as a
Yeah.
double life as a cross dresser. Right? People have
Right.
double.
Right. I mean, there's all sorts of secrets
Yep.
that people will keep, that they'll reveal to certain people in their double life, and it happens a lot.
Yep.
There's not anybody I could like seriously point to be, like, name drop or anything
Sure.
that I ever saw personally. But I mean, there were law enforcement, there was local politicians, um, so it's not the craziest thing to me. Maybe that's why it's so easy for me to kind of just accept this. It's like, well, yeah, I was there. I saw these people,
Right.
Um, and I'll tell you, a lot of these people, like, they are hell bent on forcing their belief on other people,
Mm-hmm.
which is not the craziest thing, because I mean, people do that all the time.
Right.
Like, I mean, I've watched parents do that on, other children, like other families' children, try to force the way that their family does it on, their friends' kids or whatever. And it's
Yeah.
just like, so the human nature of trying to bend other people to your will, especially I think because of the way our culture
Hmm.
is like not quite narcissistic, but like borderline. I would say, probably because of the mind control and the overall satanic, um, the satanic mission. Because the whole thing about Satanism is that it's a worship of self.
Hmm.
Like it's egoism. That's the first and foremost is whatever's best for you, whatever's best for you and your loved ones, and damn everyone else.
The rest.
Um, right. And it's very attractive to lots of people
Hmm.
because it's easy. It's super easy. you know, it's it's difficult to live your life for others, you
Hmm.
know. Um, but it's super super easy to be able to just live for yourself.
Yep.
So um we basically learned what was, or I guess to the extent of where this goes. And so the LDS Church is um, no different than any other organization. Um, what what is it that we should really take away from? I guess not only this conversation, but kind of the whole subject as a whole. Like what what should people walking away from this conversation really get from this?
That we need to stop being so naive. I think we want to take people at their word, and which isn't really a bad thing, but it's going to get you in trouble. And so I think it's important for us to, we need to get away from this, is that there are people in positions of power that are doing horrible, evil things and that are lying about it and leading that double life of pretending to be a good, righteous person while they are doing evil, horrific things on the side. And that we need to get them to lose their legitimacy. I think that's the key. We can start disobeying them when we no longer believe that they're legitimate. And we
Right.
need to start to grasp that. That'll get us to the solution is saying, oh, they're not legitimately in power. They're not legitimately there. And so we need to step back and just in our personal relationships, that's a different story. I'm talking about people that seek to have power over us in one way or another. We
Right.
need to stop being so naive and believing them at face value, judge them by their fruits, and treat them as the illegitimate people that they are. I think that's where we need to start to move towards.
Now, one thing that I kind of wanted to mention is the opposite of that as well. Is that because this is something I've noticed in my circles, is kind of the overcorrection,
Mhm.
where now all of a sudden everyone is a Fed, everyone's a Satanist. You know,
Right.
it's like, yes, there's a lot of these people out there. I promise you, they are out there, and you probably don't know what they look like. Um, but not everyone
Not the
is.
goth teenager, right? They're not the guy out there with his
Right.
black fingernails and whatnot.
Right. Very rarely. I mean, there are a few of those people, but they're few and far between,
I would say they're
you
probably the
know?
low ones.
Yeah, right. It's edgy atheists at that point.
Right,
And
right.
and I mean, hey, that is the on-ramp to a lot of this stuff.
Yes.
That's why LaVeyan Satanism um exists. And
Yep.
here's the scary part about it is once you once you accept that you can become a god, that you are a god, there's no point that you won't go to. I mean, if you yourself think you're a god, then what stops you from harming anyone? You know, it's a very scary ideology, and that's the biggest problem with it. So even in satanic circles, there's a lot of discussion about like, oh, Anton LaVey was never, like he's not a real Satanist, and it's like, no, 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 he
Is that
is.
like not a real libertarian?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like the parallels between libertarians and Satanists are It's astounding, honestly. Like the attitude
Yep.
is what I mean. That the parallels in the attitudes are so
Yep.
similar. It's scary. Um, but yeah, it is incredibly scary when you dehumanize people like that. So, in fact, there's a couple of notes, and we'll start wrapping up on this, but a couple of basic tenets of Satanism that um, everyone should know, and that's one, pure egotism. Um, it's just all about self, period, and whatever is most important to that person. Um, Second is moral relativism. You create your own morals. So one person might not be into human sacrifice, but another person might,
Right.
because they can justify it.
Yeah.
And then social Darwinism, survival of the fittest, and then eugenics, because anyone who is not a Satanist is stupid. They're lesser. In fact, Satanists will refer to people who are, the general public, the normies, they refer to them as the dead, because they are so asleep that they have not even begun to be on the path of enlightenment. And so they refer to them as the dead because they are so asleep, they might as well be dead. And it's the most dehumanizing aspect of how to look at people. Because if you already view them as dead, then you're going to have no problem causing harm to them.
Right.
So these are just a couple of things I like to remind people of. And just to, give credit where credit is due, a lot of that came from Mark Passio, who was also a former Satanist. Just so, nobody thinks I'm like taking his thing.
Rising, yeah.
Yeah. But on that, I'd like to wrap up here, and don't want to keep you too long. You've been very gracious with your time. But I do want to give you a chance to let everyone know where they can find you, what you have going on. If you have any closing remarks, if you have anything to plug, please feel free to do so.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to be on with you. I appreciate those last words that you just said. It's important that we don't allow this to ruin personal relationships.
Right.
When we talk about people in power, that's a different situation. We need to make sure that we are treating those that we engage with, our family and our friends, and those that we go to church with, those that we go to work with, that we are loving each other, and that we are building each other up, and that we are not dehumanizing those that we have those personal relationships with. It's different when we're talking about people in power. So you can find me at treeoflibertiesociety.com. We've had our YouTube channel taken down before, and so just to make sure that you don't miss us, make sure that you're going over to treeoflibertiesociety.com. We have an email list, but they like to put us in junk mail, so we also have a text. And so encourage you to pick the one that's best for you, and make sure you're letting yourself be informed on the things that we're working on. We also have my book that I mentioned earlier, Invasion, which is my own personal research on how this international conspiracy has infiltrated our local communities. I also have a fantastic book, a reprint of a book that the founding fathers actually would have read and recommended. We call it The Righteous Sword Against Tyranny. It is a reprint of a book from the 1600s called Killing No Murder. And it is a Christian's duty. It talks about the Christian's biblical response to being ruled over by a tyrant. Fantastic book you can find on our website, on Amazon, and on Barnes & Noble. And encourage you to go check out our YouTube channel as well. Give us some love over there. So appreciate the time to be with you, Jacob.
Yeah, of course. Anytime you're more than welcome to come on this channel. Any platform I have access to, you're always more than welcome.
Appreciate
This is part of building the community, because we're gonna need what I like to call like liberty enclaves. There's going to be little pockets of us all throughout the country, all throughout the world.
Yep.
And that's what it's going to take. It's going to be this centralized, decentralized network. And one of the best ways is to be able to use, I think one of the weapons that they're trying to use against us, and that's the internet. So
Yep.
we can use the same tools and fight back against them. And so, yeah, anytime anybody is out there doing something good, and I can bring the information to all the wonderful viewers, whether you're watching now live or watching the replay after, or many years in the future, hopefully, and hopefully we're in a much better situation, many years down the road. But on that note, I would like to say thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Rise to Liberty. Go ahead, hit the like, share, subscribe, all of these things. One of the best things you can do is go to allmylinks.com/rise to liberty, which is down in the episode description, along with all of the Tree of Liberty Society links, which will be down in the episode description. So make sure and check out the guest links and the Rise to Liberty links. That way you can follow both of us on the multiple platforms. Don't lose connection with anybody out there. And they try to definitely, our big tech overlords don't like this information getting spread around, and they try to squash it as much as possible. So definitely make sure and hit those links, follow us on multiple platforms, sign up for any email lists for, the most important people, because no matter what, you can take email lists. I don't have access to all the followers or subscribers on YouTube or whatever. I can't take those with me, but I can take the email list I build up on Substack. So speaking of which, I've just started releasing my Satanic Panic written series over on my Substack, which is actually named Beware the Mockingbird. So make sure and head over there to go check that out. This is going to be the most in-depth look at the Satanic Panic. Right now we're discussing, Edward Bernays and some of the early propaganda, some of the early MK Ultra stuff. We're going all the way back. I think the Satanic Panic really started with Manson, the first televised true crime horror story in the nation, and it truly set this country up on a pedestal to fall, and boy have we fallen since then. But on that note, thank you all once again for tuning in. Make sure and go check out the Tree of Liberty Society and hang out for a sec. Ben will wrap up on the back end, and until next time, stay free, my friends.
To better understand the name and what we're about, it's important to go back to the founding generation and the symbol of the Liberty Tree. The Liberty Tree was far more than a patriotic symbol. It functioned as a physical rallying point for popular resistance, a kind of grassroots command center for what contemporaries openly called rebellion. Seen through today's standards, many of the ideas and actions associated with the Liberty Tree would be labeled extreme, radical, or even insurrectionary. The Liberty Tree was most famously an elm tree in Boston beginning in 1765 during the resistance to the Stamp Act. It became the meeting place for the Sons of Liberty and a symbol of direct popular sovereignty. The idea that the people themselves, not institutions, were the ultimate authority. Similar Liberty Trees appeared throughout the colonies, each serving as a local node of resistance. The Liberty Tree represented a shift from petitioning authority to defying it. Before 1765, colonists protested largely through legal petitions, pamphlets, and appeals to Parliament. After the Liberty Tree, protest became public, coercive, and sometimes violent. The people, not corrupted courts or legislatures, became the primary enforcer of political norms. The Liberty Tree symbolized the belief that laws violating natural rights were not binding, that obedience to unjust laws was morally wrong. This included refusal to comply with taxes, obstruction of courts,
intimidation of judges and customs officials. Colonists used the Liberty Tree for public pledges to resist Parliament, for burning of British symbols, and ceremonial declarations of loyalty to liberty over law. The colonists were acting under natural law, the ancient English right of resistance, and the belief that government existed only to secure life, liberty, and property, and that once government violated those ends, it was considered not merely corrupt, but actually illegitimate. Now today, the Tree of Liberty Society believes that American support of the Founders' cause shouldn't be merely in terms of the results, but in the principles that brought those results about, and seek to read what the Founders read and do what the Founders did so that we can bring about what the Founders did. We reject libertinism, though, or the false freedom of do as thou wilt, but embrace the principles of liberty in the fashion of the Founders, in the spirit of liberty under God and His laws. As we build strength with your help, we will be in the same position of the Founders to throw off the chains of tyranny and again have a biblically moral and free society. Now, how do we do this? We do it through the printing and publishing and distribution of books, production of videos, pamphlets, exclusive member trainings, interviews, public outreach, public gatherings and presentations, and just so much more. So I want to ask you, will you show the courage of the Founding Fathers and join with us today? Go to treeoflibertysociety.com and click on the Join tab and become a member today. Or if you're not ready for that, just make sure you sign up for our email or text alerts, which you can also do at treeoflibertysociety.com. I hope you're one of those that are the moral few, the brave, those that are like the Founders, that are willing to stand up and become a member of the Tree of Liberty Society and join us in restoring lost liberty.